Over to you, ma'am.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you and welcome back. So today I will be talking about evolution of target delineation in gynecological cancers. So we know that we've evolved in terms of image-based brachytherapy, and if we think of it, we've always used imaging in some form or the other to guide us towards brachytherapy. So these terminologies are often confusing, and the way I put it is that when we mean image-guided brachytherapy, we mean any technique where imaging is used to guide our brachytherapy applications and source placements. So this we have traditionally used. And when we talk about image-based or adaptive or guided brachytherapy, we mean a technique where advanced imaging modalities are used to gain information regarding the volumetric dose distribution and adaptation. Traditionally, what we have been following is the planar-based imaging. And traditionally, what we have done is that we have always done an X-ray based planning where we used to take two orthogonal. If you think that we were going to have a 3D, extraction by doing these orthogonal X-rays. However, and that is because it was difficult to relate the source on one orthogonal image, and of course, because of the difference in appearance of anatomy in the two views. However, there were some associated problems, like there used to be poor image quality on the lateral film, maybe if the patient was very thick, and also in difficulty of associating the source of the two films. And historically, the dose-based prescriptions that evolved over a period of time was that we started with milligram hour of radium from the Stockholm and Paris-based techniques. We subsequently moved on to Point A and the Manchester-based systems. And also we had the ICRU38 concept where we had a reference volume through which we could correlate our doses and clinical results. So we're very happy with the 2D brachytherapy because we had excellent local control rates and the toxicities were acceptable to the tune of about less than 15%. Although good in terms of local control, especially for early stage, we had unexplained treatment failures, which we didn't know why it was. And of course, there were inconsistencies and lack of correlation between the toxicities and critical organ point doses. Like we often went back and saw that ICRU point doses were within normal limits, but patients were coming with toxicities and vice versa. So there was a limitation in the 2D brachytherapy. So what were these drawbacks of Point A? Firstly, that this is an empiric point. It is basically a point which has different definitions, and we know we have at least 3 definitions of Point A, starting from the one that was Manchester based and to the one that has been recommended by the ABS, which is the Point H. So once we have different definitions, of course, we have different calculated dose rates. Also, Point A is basically, it was devised because it was representative of a dose limiting point. And since this is located in a very high dose gradient, even with small inaccuracies in the application, there could be large variations. So the inaccuracies in dose could be approximately about 10% for every 1 mm variation. Also, this relates more to the source position than to the target itself, and in no way does it reflect the dose to the tumor. So over the last few decades, we have progressed in terms of, from planar imaging, we are now in sectional imaging. And of course, we also are now to functional imaging. So similar to the advances that have been made in imaging and radiodiagnosis, we have also improvised our techniques of external beam radiation, where we have moved from 2D planning to 3D conformal to IMRD, IGRT, and adaptive dose planning. However, in terms of brachytherapy, we were relatively slow. During the same time when we had sectional imaging, we realized there were various studies during that time which realized that perhaps the film-based planning was underdosing the CT visible cervix. So those were the first evidences. Also, it was seen that the cervical dose was actually about 40% lower than the prescription with the high volumes. And people tried to correlate the 60 gray pair isodose volume, which was encompassed by the average gross tumor volume. And what they found out was that as the stage increased, this 60 gray pear-shaped isodose volume recommended by the ICRU 38 was inadequate grossly. Also, not only for the cervical tumor, for the cervix or the target itself, but there were also discrepancies between the bladder and the rectal point doses, which were the ICRU bladder and rectal point doses. So it was seen that whereas ICRU rectal point doses were mainly comparable to 3D max doses, the ICRU bladder doses were usually underestimated. That means in actual, the probably doses to the bladder were more. However, in the latest recent studies, it has also been seen that perhaps there is also a misrepresentation of the ICRU rectal point doses as well. So as we moved on with the external beam radiation and advancements, there were advancements in gynecological brachytherapy also, which were relatively slower, but they did happen. So we had incorporation of newer imaging modalities in the form of CT scan, MR, PET. We had advancements in treatment planning systems simultaneously. Then we had applicator developments. Initially, we were using stainless steel applicators. With the advent of CT scans and MRI, we came up with CT-MR compatible applicators. And after that, there was a need for an image volume-based concept, which was there in external radiation. So we had a concept of image volume-based brachytherapy. Also, if you see in terms of applicators, we also had applicators, which initially we had basically intracavitary applicators and interstitial applicators. We had the development of combined intracavitary interstitial techniques. And this was the Vienna applicator that came, which provided us an opportunity to do a simultaneously intracavitary along with an interstitial implant. Also, this is the latest Venezia applicator, which gives us a more, a vast opportunity to treat all kinds of tumors, even if there is lateral parametrial extent or lower vaginal extension. So we moved on to 2D, to 3D, and presently we are in the concept of 4D brachytherapy. So we've moved on using various imaging modality, and now we've come to a target concept. So why do we need this image-based brachytherapy? Firstly, once we have a 3D planning, it allows a volumetric optimization, which helps in improving the tumor coverage and, of course, critical organ sparing. And once we are using this volume-based concept, we know that the dose prescription is always related to the target, and actual coverage can be assessed by using various dose volume parameters. Also, once we have a spatial dose distribution, visualization, and the spatial dose conforms to the target volume, and of course, it reduces the dose to the normal tissues as well, because optimization is possible. And this gives us a potential for dose escalation and increasing the therapeutic window with producing greater local control rates with manageable or fewer toxicities. However, since this concept was coming, we needed some common language to be on the same page. And there we had the development of the JEC-ESTRO recommendations. So these are a set of 4 must-read papers, which are the basis of image-guided adaptive brachytherapy in cervical cancer. So we have these 4 recommendations, starting from the concept of 3D, concept of how to determine the GTV and the target volumes, the concept of the DVH parameters, the recommendations on imaging and how to go about it, and also on applicator reconstruction. So the modality of choice for image-based brachytherapy is basically MRI. That is because it has a superior soft tissue resolution, and it is the best modality for visualizing the cervix, the tumor size, and of course the volume and the spread of the tumor. Also, it gives us the distinction between the cervix and the uterus, which is not usually possible with the CT scan. We have a better information about the parametrial and the vaginal infiltration, which is best assessed by clinical and clinical examination rather than a CT scan as compared to an MRI. And this also gives us a 3D information and an anatomic relationship between the applicator and the tumor and the adequacy of the coverage of the target. And of course, you can assess the doses to the organs at risk. And the best thing is that you have a capability of multiplanar scanning, where you can see the target and the images in a multiplanar thing on the same screen. So this is just to show you how the tumor looks on an MRI. The tumor is usually indicated by a high signal intensity that is surrounded by normal cervical stroma. And this is a coronal section which shows you very beautifully the parametrial invasion. So the cervical stromal rim in axial sections is usually lost, and there is breach of the cervical stromal rim, and you can see the parametrial extension. And and you will see the disruption of the low signal peripheral intensity by the high signal tumor. So for this concept, there are specific requirements from the JEC-ESTRO. You need a T2 weighted image, which is a high signal intensity images, and the MR is usually required at diagnosis and at brachytherapy. For the JEC-ESTRO recommendations, the MRI has to be done at the time of brachytherapy, and you see the changes of the EBRT also, which show up along with the intermediate signal intensity as along with the high signal intensity as intermediate signal intensity in the form of gray zones. Now, since we are doing these applications with the recommendation is of an MRI with the applicator in situ, you need to have an image orientation which mimics or the same. So the image orientations that are recommended are in reference to the applicator axis. So they are the true parallel and the orthogonal along with the paratransverse, the paracoronal and the parasage in relation to the applicator axis. In addition, we have an MRI protocol where the slice thickness should be around 3 mm. And also you have to have a bladder filling protocol according to your institute. The routine bladder filling protocol, the idea is that you want to have the same, like external radiation, the same bladder filling that is there at the time of imaging and at the time of each fraction of brachytherapy. So depending on the institutional protocol, any protocol can be followed. It could be an intermediate bladder filling protocol or an empty bladder protocol as a policy. So now when the volume-based concept came, they divided it like external radiation into a high risk CTV, an intermediate CTV, and low risk CTV. So this was basically according to the cancer density. And this saw was the macroscopic tumor load was actually the high risk clinical target volume, which encompassed the disease and the cervix. And the potential for microscopic disease area is the intermediate region of the intermediate risk. Now this is also in reference to the ICRU 38, 60 degree reference isodose volume. And the potential for microscopic disease, this is the low risk volume. So based on these, we have the recommendation. So what is high risk CTV? High risk CTV is basically the gross tumor at the brachytherapy, in addition to the whole cervix, plus any presumed extra cervical extension, which is either seen or assessed the clinical assessment or by the residual gray zones on the MRI. Now, it is very important to have these concepts right, because the majority of inconsistencies actually occur at the target delineation. So for HRCTV, we do not apply any safety margins. The dose that is delivered should be high enough to sterilize the macroscopic tumor. So this is comparable to 0.8 doses, and the intent is to treat 85 to 90 gray dose to this HRCTV. So what is intermediate risk CTV? Like I said, this is the dose that compares to the 60 gray reference isodose volume of the ICRU 38. So this has to integrate the HRCTV, which of course integrates the GTV. Plus, in addition to that, we give safety margins around the HRCTV, which range from 5 to 15 mm. So usually anteriorly and posteriorly, the margins are 5 mm because of the bladder and rectum, and the lateral margins are 15 mm. So they are basically, this is a safety margin which is chosen according to the tumor size and location and the potential spread and the tumor regression. So the intent is to deliver a basic minimum of 60 gray to this reference volume. So it has to be minimum of 60 or more than 60 gray. So the concept of CTV and this thing is designated, and how we contour it and how we delineate is basically based on the tumor regression that you've seen after EBRT at the time of brachytherapy. So this red denotes the high risk CTV. Now, if you have a complete remission, the HRCTV is going to be only your cervix, and the IRCTV is going to be with the margins which will represent your intermediate risk CTV or the disease at the diagnosis. Now, in case of partial remission, suppose you have a disease which is extending to cervix and to the parametria. So that is your HRCTV. In addition to that, you give a safety margin of 10 mm. So even if So this 10 mm margin has to be given irrespective of the tumor at diagnosis. So depending on the extent of remission, you give this margin. And in case you have a stable disease, your IRCTV margins would actually be beyond your IRC, beyond your tumor at diagnosis because of the stability of the disease. So you need to give the safety margin in addition to those. Then, of course, the organs are also contoured on the MR images, and the bladder is contoured as an outer bladder wall, including the bladder neck. The rectum is contoured again as an outer rectal wall from the anal sphincter to the transition into the sigmoid. The sigmoid is contoured up to above 2 centimeters of the parametria, and the contouring has to be always done above, a few sections above the IRCTV. The bowel loops also, we contour the outer loops within 3 to 4 centimeters of the uterus and the application. So the prescribed dose here is always related to the target, and the prescription dose is planned as such so that the target is adequately covered as far as possible. And we always start with a standard point-based prescription and a standard loading. So the standard point of prescription is always the point A. So that is where you always start your prescription. So the HRCTV doses recommended by these JEC ESTRO recommendations are that the small tumor should receive anywhere between 80 to 85 gray. For large tumors where the response is good, it should be between 85 to 90 gray. And for the large tumors which are poorly responders, they need more dose. So that has to be above 90 gray. The IRCTV, like I said before, should be around 60 gray minimum. Then we also have various parameters, that is the V60 EQD2, which helps us in evaluating the role of the dose to the IRCTV, and the V85, which is more closely to the prescription dose to the HRCTV. Also, we should always report the dose to the traditional point A for comparison. So the parameters that we use for dosimetric evaluation for the GTV and HRCTVs, that is D100, D98, and D90. Now, they are the minimum doses that are delivered to 100, 98, and 90% of the volume of interest respectively. Now, D100 is not reliable. It is basically dependent on target delineation, and even small steep, spikes in the contours can lead to steep dose gradients. So that is basically not really important for us. It is the D98 and the D90 which are important for us. The D90 is considered as a less sensitive to these influences of quaternary and is a more stable parameter. In addition to that, we report the TRAC, the point A doses, the V100, that is the volume receiving more than 100% of prescribed dose, which should be more than 95%, and also the V100 to 200 ratio. So what about the organs at risk? Now, since there is a rapid dose fall-off near the organ, the volume has to be defined to these limited volumes. So the doses that are defined are the 0.1, 1, 2 cc, and 5 cc, but essentially it's the 2 cc that is recommended. And 2 cc represents the minimum dose that is received to the volume of interest, and this should not be wrongly interpreted as the maximum dose. So it is the minimum dose to that representative area. So what are these basic principles of image-based brachytherapy? Gynecological examination has to be done, and I cannot stress enough on the importance of this. So both gynec examination and an MR or a CT, whatever you are using, with the brachytherapy applicator in situ are performed at the time of brachytherapy. For each fraction of brachytherapy, the contouring has to be done for the CTV based again on the MRI and OAR on the findings and your clinical examination. Subsequently, the applicator has to be reconstructed, and you always start with the conventional loading pattern matching that of the dose prescription of point A. So the starting point is always point A, and then you go towards analyzing the DVH parameters and optimizing the plan according to the coverage and the doses of the OARs. So this dose optimization is performed with the goal of adapting to the dose to the target volume. Evaluation of the DVH parameters is obtained using these JEC ESTRO recommendations, and all the doses are expressed in physical doses of 2 gray equivalent doses which should be recorded. So coming to the steps, like I said, a clinical examination is one of the most important components. You have to have a clinical examination both at diagnosis and at brachytherapy. So we usually do an examination we do an EOA at the time of brachytherapy because that's the best way to assess the parametrial growth. So you incorporate the findings not only of a clinical examination, but also of the imaging that you're using to draw these clinical drawings. Then contouring of the target is done. So we contour on the axial images, and we simultaneously evaluate our contours on the multiplanar images of sag and coronal sections, and then you reconstruct your contours and you draw them on T2 weighted MRI images. So like I said, the dose is prescribed to point A, and subsequently your optimization of the plan is done to conform to the target and to ensure an adequate coverage of the HRCTV. So what you're seeing in pink is the HRCTV, and you started from normalization at point A, and then the optimization has been done to cover this target. Also, image-based, like I mentioned before, for larger tumors, this also gives us an opportunity to use a combined intracavity interstitial techniques. So if you have a tumor, which is a larger tumor, which cannot be covered in point A, so you need to add something more. So what you can do is you can simultaneously add interstitial needles using a Venezia or a Viana or a Utrecht applicator, and you can ensure the tumor coverage by sculpting the dose according to the extension of the tumor or the target. So we aim at these planning aims which are recommended by EMBRACE. So we aim at a D90 for at least more than 85 gray, and the planning aim is to have a dose somewhere between 90 to 95 gray. The D98 should be more than 75 gray. And the G98 for the GTV, if you are delineating it on an MRI, it is possible only on an MRI, should be more than 95 gray with a minimum of 90 gray. Also for the bladder, we aim at achieving less than 80 gray, but the limits are less than, so we have soft and hard constraints. So the planning aim is, sorry, less than 80 gray. But anywhere below 90 gray, especially with the use of interstitial needles, is acceptable. For D98, for the rectum, it is less than 65 gray. For the rectovaginal point, which is the ICRU rectal point, we now take a hard constraint of less than 65 gray because this gives us a representative dose to the vagina. It is correlated to the vaginal toxicity. Also for sigmoid and the small bowel doses, we try and keep them less than 75 gray, but we definitely don't exceed to more than, less than 70 gray, but we definitely don't exceed to more than 75 gray. So although we are familiar with this concept, and this concept has been there for over a decade now, we still have problems implementing this image-guided adaptive brachytherapy using the MRI. And it is not only in our country, but this is probably a phenomena in even the Western world. So this was a survey which was conducted by the ABS, and this was in 2014, and what they see was that only the 46% people were still using point A, although the use of MRI increased up to 34% and volume-based delineation increased to 50%, still 50% of centers were not using the volume-based delineation of the target yet. Similarly, for Australia and New Zealand, ultrasound was increased for a majority of applications for application guidance for placement of applicator, and CT and MRI were used in about 80 and 50%. So still about 50% people were not using MRI, and the target volume concept was adapted by about 65% patients. So means 1/3 again had not adopted the target volume concept by 2017. If we come to our Indian scenario, then we still about 1/3 people use orthogonal X-rays and the rest are using CT imaging. Point A prescription is still being followed by a majority of centers. That is 2/3 are still following the point A prescription. And the most common methodology for dose prescription, again, is point A using the manual and geometric methods. So we know that there are actually challenges to implementing MR-based brachytherapy. Why? Because you need MR compatible applicators, which are expensive. Bony anatomy is not well differentiated on CT. In addition, it is very time consuming and labor intensive. For high volume centers, it is very difficult to do even 2 applications of MR guided or 2 MR guided brachytherapy on a given day, because it takes between, easily between 3 to 4 hours for each MR guided planning. So in that context, do we have other options? Can we use any other options like ultrasound or CT scan? So ultrasound guided brachytherapy has been used mainly by the Peter MacCallum Center in Australia, and also by Dr. Umesh at TMH. So people have used transabdominal and transrectal ultrasounds both to have a measure of the tumor. Some have used the applicator and have measured the uterus. Some have used the dimensions at maybe 2 centimeters of equal gradations to kind of correlate or to have a 3D evaluation or an idea about the target. So studies have also are being done, and it is being done in TMH, where the ultrasound and clinical examination and CT scan, along with the CT scan, have been correlated to the MRI-based target description or delineation. So the advantage of ultrasound is that one thing is that we use it routinely for our applicator placements, and it can also be used for volume-based planning in CS cervix. The applicator position is optimized in the uterus and cervix on an ultrasound, and you can have sagittal and axial images of the applicator on the ultrasound, which you can take, and you can correlate with the orthogonal films, and you manipulate the dwell weights and the dwell position to ensure an adequate coverage of the uterus and the cervical dimensions that you see on the ultrasound, and then the treatment is delivered. Then coming to CT, can we use CT scan? Because we know that CT scans are widely available in all radiotherapy departments. And we also know from studies that OARs can be well defined on CT scan compared to an MRI. So it is basically the tumor, the target, that is a difficulty. The OARs are really not a problem in delineation on a CT scan. However, we note that there is difficulty in parametric assessment. We've seen by various studies that there is overestimation of the width of the HRCTV. So this is from the paper by Akela Vishwanathan, where the contour, the dark contour, red contour is your CT-based contour, and the dotted contour is your MR contour. So here we know that there's a clear-cut overestimation of the CT scan, of the contour in the lateral direction. And also on a CT, you cannot even see the intrauterine extension. So if there is an intrauterine extension on brachytherapy or at the time of diagnosis, you could be missing out on a disease using the CT scan alone. In addition, even if we are doing CT-based image-guided brachytherapy, we need MR or CT compatible applicators, which are of course now available or are with the vendors are actually now providing only CT MR compatible applicators, because metallic applicators create a lot of artifact. And of course, there are issues with using of dummy markers, the metallic dummy markers, which you cannot use. So for CT scan, you can supplement it with copper wires. And of course, we should avoid using contrast and Foley's balloon, because that also leads to artifacts. So if you are doing or planning to do CT guided brachytherapy, so there are 2 ways of doing it. One is that we still base our prescriptions on point A because of uncertainties of delineation of target on a CT scan, and you report the doses to the volumetric doses to the organs at risk. So you can contour the OARs on a CT scan, you can evaluate the 2 cc doses to the OARs on a CT scan, and you can still do a point A based prescription, which till date is safer. Now, target delineation on CT and target delineation based CT guided adaptive brachytherapy is still experimental. I would not say that it is definite, but of course there are various ways you can delineate the target on CT. Now, like I said before, that it is easy to delineate a target on CT if the dose is only confined to cervix. If there's parametrial extension, you do face a lot of difficulties. So what one can do is that you can aid take the help of an MRI, which you can do a pre-brachy MRI. So it saves you the time of doing MR guided brachytherapy at the time of brachytherapy. So a pre-brachy MRI can give you a fair estimate of the parameter spread, and then you can, with your clinical examination and MRI, have a fair idea about your HRCTV, which can be contoured or delineated on the CT scan. So if I have to start target deletion on CTV, we start inferiorly from the level of superior level of ring or ovoid, and this is the same that we do for MRI. So we start on an axial image and superiorly. The reason I'm saying inferiorly is that we always start inferiorly. Superiorly, there are ways, there are pointers towards where the cervix ends. One is where you see a point of expansion. Now, for this particular image, you really are not able to make out very well the point of expansion. It is somewhere around here. So that may not be very obvious, especially in endocervical diseases. But of course, the point of volume of expansion can give you a fair estimate. And from there is where you can start coning down your HRCTV to have this shape. Then also you can see the appearance of uterine cavity, but sometimes the uterus may be anteverted and it may be difficult to again see this junction as to where is this expansion. Then another way is that you can visualize the uterine artery using an IV contrast at the time of your planning CT for brachytherapy, and that is where is the point where you start coning down. And like I mentioned before, for parametry, you can use a pre-brachy MRI. You can also take some hint from a diagnostic MRI, and with a clinical examination at the time of brachytherapy, do a fair estimation. So this has been done in our department, but like I said, this is still experimental, because delineation on a target, an incorrect delineation of a target and CT can be more detrimental than beneficial. So you have to be very sure. So now, since we are somewhere in between point A and image guided brachytherapy and CT scan, is there still a relevance of point A? So if we see, majority of our tumors, which are maybe around less than 4 centimeters, are well covered with point A. So if I talk about majority of centers or high volume centers, where it is difficult to do an image guided adaptive brachytherapy for each patient, quite a number of our patients will be covered by point A. However, it has been seen that smaller tumors sometimes end up receiving very high doses because and which are not required, and at the same time your larger tumors may receive suboptimal doses. And at the same time, when smaller tumors received very high doses, you could have increased doses to the organs at risk. So there is an opportunity for image guided adaptation, both in smaller tumors in reducing the doses to OARs, and for larger tumors in improving the target coverage. And what is the correlation between point A and HRCTV? We cannot do away with the point A. Like I said, it is first the starting point of our planning. It also allows us for comparison of different approaches, because traditionally we have a good amount of data with point A, which has given us good results. Point A is not a surrogate for tumor, for target, but definitely it is a surrogate for the irradiated volume. It also helps for major dose escalation or de-escalation or reduction. So there have been various thresholds for point A which have been recommended. So if you are treating a volume to 85 gray, you have to record the doses and keep in view the doses to point A. So if you're using a 2D X-ray based along with image guided, so you have to see that the doses to point A should not be less than 75 gray. And if you're doing a CT base, it should not be more than 70 gray. For MRI adaptive brachytherapy, the point A doses should not be reduced to less than 65 gray. So they should be more than 65 gray, even with adaptive brachytherapy. So what are the uncertainties and challenges that we face in image-based brachytherapy? Like I said, contouring uncertainties, this is perhaps one of the major steps. So this is where we have to be right. And this is a slide from one of the Jaikistro courses where, you can see that there is so much of discrepancy or variation in contouring the target or the HRCTV. Then you have uncertainties related to applicator reconstruction, which can be both random and systematic errors. And of course, there are increased demands of the total cost of brachytherapy, and dosimetric uncertainties are there because it is, you are reproducing a dose on a 4-dimensional target in real time where you are planning at each brachy session. And of course, there are issues with intrafractional variation also of the OARs, namely the bladder and the rectum. And there could also be discrepancies in contouring of the gray zones on MRI. And this requires optimal training and expertise. There is a learning curve. One has to do at least 20 to 25 MRI guided brachytherapies to have or implement that concept on various other modalities and to get it right even for the, in accordance with the JK-STRO or the ICRU 89 concept. So what are the results using MR guided brachytherapy? We have results from the retro embrace. So the retro embrace showed us that if we have doses of more than 85 gray given over the time period, that is respecting overall treatment time of 7 weeks, the 3-year local control is more than 94% for tumors which are limited. It goes on to about 5% for tumors which are of intermediate size, that is about somewhere around 30 cc or less, and the local controls are more than 93%. And excellent local controls can also be achieved in tumors with larger HRCT volumes, and increase in local control of 7% has been observed if you increase the doses to about 90 gray. So if you increase the doses further in these large tumors to between 90 to 95 gray, you have an excellent increase in local control to the tune of 13%, which is even better than what we have achieved with the best of trials using chemoradiation. Also, what we learn is that for every increase in the overall treatment time by 1 week, a dose of 5 gray in brachytherapy is required to compensate for this increase in overall treatment time. And also, as your HRCTV volume increases by 10 cc, it requires an additional 5 gray to get an equivalent local control. So we also have the EMBRACE study, the results of which are going to be soon published. They have already been submitted. So this is the largest study which has accrued about 14-16 patients, of which there have been 20 participating centers. And we have 2 participating centers from India, that is Tata and PGIMR. The recruitment has been completed in 2015, and the results are going to be published very soon. So I would like to conclude by saying that MRI is still the gold standard for image-guided adaptive brachytherapy. There are improved outcomes that we've seen with retro embrace. It gives us an opportunity for dose escalation, for widening the therapeutic window at the cost of decreased or acceptable toxicity. And MRI is definitely superior to CT and film-based images in delineation of the tumor. And doses to MR and CT-based volumes are associated with clinically recommended outcome, with clinically relevant outcomes. Even with the use of CT-based brachytherapy, CT-based OAR reporting, as compared to 2D brachytherapy, there is an improvement in outcomes to the tune of 20%. Thank you. I will be open for questions and comments.
Thank you, ma'am, for excellent presentation and a brief overview on the image-guided brachytherapy. But in a country like India, it's like we are still finding it, sitting in a corporate hospital, we are still finding it difficult to implement the MRI-based brachytherapy, as we don't have a dedicated unit for that. Though we are doing the CT-based planning and respecting the point A, we've started, but it's far ahead if we think of the MRI-based brachy.
Yes, I truly agree with you. Now, like I've showed you, it's not only India, worldwide it is difficult to implement. It is practically feasible for all of us. So I fully agree with you. For us also, the standard is point A based prescriptions while evaluating the doses to OARs. But now what we've done is we've started a tailored approach for these patients. We see the tumors which are larger tumors, and patients who have large tumors, tumors going into parametria, poor responders, they are the ones whom we selectively take for MR guided brachytherapy. And like I said, if not, I think a pre-brachy MRI is something which we need to explore, and it is easily doable with a CT-based planning, though it is still in experimental phase. We are following that as of now.
So Dr. Bhavna, when you do CT-based planning, still you must be using the applicator which is MRI compatible, or like we have normal Fletcher suit that is having a lot of artifacts when we do CT. So which applicator you use while doing CT-based planning?
Yes, we are using CT-MR compatible applicators.
Okay.
Yes.
So now coming to the questions, the first question is there any level 1 evidence that image guided brachy has survival advantage over point A based brachy?
Of course, I showed you the data from the RetroEmbrace. Like I showed you, humongous advantage of 13% improved in local control, which we have not seen so far. So definitely it gives us an opportunity for dose escalation. So there is an advantage of MR guided brachytherapy. For smaller tumors, you can reduce the OR doses and you can avoid unnecessary high dose to the smaller tumors. So there is the level 1 evidences from the RetroEmbrace is, yes, we have data from the Embrace. Although I do have the results, but I think we should wait for the published results to get it. There is definite improvement in local control.
You have shown that is showing the local control.
That is RetroEmbrace, yes.
The question is about survival advantage.
Yes, even survival advantage. Okay. Actually, yes, the Embrace is going to come up with the results very soon.
Okay, Dr. Bhavna.
Actually, basically what they are seeing in Embrace is that the failures are distant failures. So that is one area which is, again, needs to be explored. And if you see Embrace 2, we are now incorporating image-guided adaptive brachytherapy, external radiation as well.
Okay. So the next question is, how do you optimize your dose to intermediate risk CTV?
See, intermediate risk CTV, the concept has basically come from the French and they are using it. We are not optimizing the doses to IRCTV. We are reporting the doses to IRCTV. We are optimizing the doses to HRCTV. Okay.
Oh, sure. Dr. Trapti, I have a few announcements again. Our next class will be on target delineation in post-mastectomy patients. And I want to introduce you also. You are senior consultant in Max Hospital, Parpadan, and Dr. Rekha is consultant in JP Hospital. Dr. Sapna is also here. Dr. Neeraj Rastogi, Dr. Punita Lal, Madam, all senior persons. Dr. Ajit, they are here. If anyone want to please share your experience, please share. Dr. Sonia, Dr. Sunil Chaudhary. Dr. Tapti, meanwhile you continue. Thank you so much.
So the next question, Dr. Bhavna, is, are you using entire bladder filling with contrast in MRI based planning?
No. See, we are using an intermediate planning protocol. So what we are using now is that we are instilling 7 cc of saline in the bulb. And for the bladder, we are instilling 20 cc saline in the MRI. And we leave the catheter is left unclamped and it is left to flow under the gravity. So it is left as such. So you would kind of reproduce a reproducible bladder filling. Now, if you're doing a CT scan, so what we do for CT is that we instill 20 cc, 18 cc saline with 2 cc of urographene to have a contrast, and it comes out very well. The delineation comes out very well. The other way that you can do is that you can introduce 50 cc of saline and leave it under free flow free flow again at the time of imaging and at the time of brachytherapy. One important thing that I want to again highlight is that you need to follow this protocol at each fraction of brachytherapy. It is not only for imaging. So ensure, because most of the times these are the residents and the technologists that are doing that. So that has to be ingrained, that it has to be done even prior to every brachyfractions, just when the patient is already on the table for the treatment.
Just to maintain the bladder volume.
Yes, yes.
And that is a wonderful point. Like you give a little bit of contrast and left it as a gravity. So there is a residual contrast That
Yes.
makes a beautiful interface between uterus and the bladder, and we can
Yes.
identify the bladder.
Yes. The
Yeah.
Tata Memorial Hospital, they prefer the empty bladder concept, and they use an aseptic syringe to empty the bladder.
Okay.
We are more comfortable with the intermediate bladder filling protocol, which is again being followed by the Jackie Street.
Okay. Sure. Thanks. Thank you, Dr. Bhavna.
And
So the next,
bladder filling protocol for CT planning.
For CT guided brachytherapy,
Yes, ma'am.
yes, that is what I said. That what we do is that we instill 18 cc mixed with 2 cc of urographin in the bladder. And that gives a very nice interface for contouring the bladder wall. And you leave it under free flow under gravity. You don't clamp the catheter.
okay. So the next question is, what is superior and inferior extent of parametrium on CT scan? I think there are well-defined guidelines for the same, so we can skip this question. So the next question is, since your center was involved with the EMBRACE study, we would like to know in how many of your patients you could do MRI with each fraction of brachytherapy along with pre-RT MRI.
Yes, so that's a good question. Actually, for our study, during the Embrace 1 study, Embrace study did not give you, each center was allowed to use the dose vaccination schedule for brachytherapy. So we still used 9 gray into 2 for patients who had smaller tumors, and we escalated doses for patients where the tumors were large. So we did not use the MRI at each brachyfraction. After a couple of cases, we realized it was very difficult. So we used the MRI only at first brachyfraction. And if we go on to the studies, like for most of us, we do the brachytherapy towards the end of the treatment. And there the difference in the tumor volume is not much if you're treating within the last few weeks. So we used the first MRI only, and we used fusion of MR and CT, and along with the clinical examinations, delineated the target on CTs in subsequent fractions. That is how we did it. But for our practice routinely that we are doing is that we evaluate the patient. If the patient we think requires dose escalation, that we do with guided brachytherapy. Since we are not able to do an MR at brachytherapy with applicator in situ, we get an MRI done about 2 to 3 days prior to brachytherapy. We see the spread. We ask for the patient for DICOM compatible images on an CD, and we see those images, and we kind of have the measures of the tumor along with the clinical examination prior to going in for the procedure, and that is how we contour our target on CT for these patients. So we are using different protocols for patient depending whether they are part of the study or they are part of our routine treatments. For routine patients where we feel that point A is going to be sufficient in controlling the tumor, where the tumor is localized to the cervix, we are still going ahead with point A based prescriptions.
Hello. Good morning, ma'am. Ma'am, next question is, just wait, ma'am. My chat box is not opening. Ma'am, next question is, how do you submit the dose of the EBRT in the brachytherapy?
So you have to take the 2 gray equivalent dose, and you have the chart for it. So just convert it into 2 gray equivalent dose, and you add the doses of the external radiation and the brachytherapy. That is the dose to the HRCTB. If you're using HRCTB based prescriptions, or dose to point if you're using point A based prescription.
Ma'am, how we decide that we should give 6.5 gray in 3 fraction, or 7 gray in 3 fraction, or 9 gray in 2 fraction?
See, that is again based on various institutional protocols. Like the IBS recommends that a minimum, the dose per fraction should not exceed 7.5 gray. But in our own experience, and I think AIMS also, they have used dose fractionation of 10 gray per fraction. 9 gray is what we use because of logistics, and so it's basically your institutional decision and your institutional policy. But again, if you have to do dose escalation, definitely you have to decrease your dose per fractionation, and you have to increase your total EQ-D2. Now, EQ-D2 with 9 gray per fraction is only 74.5 gray at point A. Now, the very fact that we are being able to do that is because most of the tumors are going to be within point A. So that means the tumor actually will be receiving a higher EQD2. Now, if I have to dose escalate for a patient who has a larger tumor, I would choose a fractionation of 7:4, respecting the overall treatment time, giving 2 fractions like the EMBRACE study group within one application, at least 12 hours apart, and use adaptive brachytherapy with MRI to escalate the doses to these patients. So
Okay,
you can use different fractionation schedules.
Okay, ma'am. Ma'am, what about the Mupid dose prescription? How you matlab prescribe? What is your experience?
See, for Muppet, basically
Yes,
the
ma'am.
yeah. So for Muppet also, what we are doing is that we are contouring the CTV just to ensure a coverage, but the planning that we are doing is basically based on the Paris system.
Oh, ma'am, what dose you advise?
See, there are various dose fractionation schedules that are given by the ABS. There are various recommendations for, again, if you're giving it after external radiation or you're giving it, maybe for vault in CA endometrium. So centers, you can use a dose per fraction anywhere between 3.5 to 5.5 to 6.5, again, depending on your logistics and your institutional protocol, and you can refer to the ABS recommendations for the various dose fractionation schedules that they have given. So centers like in the US, they use anywhere between 5.5 gray per fraction, but you could base your dose fractionation even for interstitial implants based on the various recommendations. The idea is to have a dose of between 75 to 80 gray or 80 to 85 depending on what you are treating.
Okay, ma'am, next question is dose per fraction as recommended by ABS should not be more than 7.5 gray. You still give 9 gray per fraction. How do you reflect on this? I think you already explained this question.
Yeah, so one thing that again I would like to say, if you're giving such high doses per fraction, like for us, we do all our brachytherapy applications under general anesthesia. So if you see the basic concept of radiotherapy, that you have to include, how can you improve the therapeutic window? You can decrease the doses to OARs. So that we do by a good packing. So your packing has to be adequate to displace the OARs adequately. So I think that is the reason we are able to still move ahead or continue with our 9 gray to point A based dose prescriptions.
Okay, next question is, ma'am, are you using contrast routinely at the time of brachytherapy?
Yes. IV contrast or contrast in the bladder?
Ma'am, this is not mentioned, but I think IV contrast.
Okay. IV contrast, we have just started very recently. Pre-lockdown, we had just started for a few patients to start identifying the uterine artery. Otherwise, routinely, we have not been using it. But we propose to start it because we propose to start delineating the targets on CT without moving on to prescriptions as such.
Okay, ma'am. Next question is, there are centers which go 7 gray per fraction BID for 4 fraction with
Yes.
one single intracavitary application. What is your take on this?
One single intracavitary application. I think that is being done by Dr. Janki in Bangalore.
Ma'am, I repeat.
I think there is one center which is, I think there is, hello? I think there is one center that is following it in Bangalore, if I'm not wrong, Dr. Janki. Okay. So see, I don't know, whether they are giving it continuously. I think this is still a part of a study, and I really don't know, because that 12-hour interfraction interval is given continuously, because what they say usually is that you should not give more than 2 fractions, brachytherapy fractions in a week. But I'm sure this is a part of a protocol, and if, I will not be able to comment on that, but if studies show that this is feasible, that would be a good thing, if you can keep the OAR doses under acceptable limits. But you have to have an interfraction interval of minimum of 12 hours. So that is it.
Okay, ma'am. Ma'am, next question is why we are not optimizing doses on IRCTV since it is the area with micrometastasis, as you pointed out that it should receive more than 60 grade.
So if you see, first we have to see that what concept are we following. We are basically conceptually used to following the point A based. So point A based is basically synonymous with the HRCTV. But at the same time, we are reporting. But if you want to follow a volume based concept, that is fine. But that has to be in accordance or in conjunction with your HRCTV based doses. And most of the times the IRCTV will receive that amount of dose if you submit it.
Okay, ma'am. Next question is, it is possible to delineate the HRCTV, IRCTV with the standard applicator we are using, that is metallic?
No, it is very difficult. It is even very difficult to delineate the OARs because the artifacts that you see, it is difficult. You just cannot, even visualize the cervix properly, the posterior bladder wall, the anterior rectal wall. It is very difficult to visualize. So that volume-based concept should definitely not be tried with a stainless steel applicator or a non-MR or a CT compatible applicator. Because like I said, these are high dose areas and uncertainties, even small uncertainties can lead to large dose variations. So that is not recommended.
Okay, next question is, ma'am, you already explained what is your dose schedule with Mupit in CA cervix.
Yes.
Next question, in Embarrass study in the brachytherapy done after completion of the EBRT or else it is disintegrated with EBRT.
Sorry?
Interdigitated with EBRT.
Yes. Can you please repeat the question? There was some.
I repeat the question. Embarrass study brachytherapy done after completion of EBRT or else it is interdigited with EBRT.
I'm sorry, and I'm able to.
I am audible?
Yes, but your voice is breaking. Can you repeat the question?
I repeat the question. I repeat the question. I'm audible?
Yes, yes.
Ma'am, question is, in Embarrass study, is brachytherapy done after completion of the EBRT or it is interdigitated with EBRT?
Okay. See, we are also interdigitate sometimes. The whole idea is that you have to respect the overall treatment time. And usually interdigitation that we do because we are dealing usually with local bulky tumors. So we prefer the interdigitation after the 3rd week. So within the last week, you can start interdigitating. But again, if you are using the dose fractionation schedule like the US where you give 5.5 gray or 5 gray per fraction, you can start interdigitating even in the earlier part of the external beam radiation. As long as you are keeping your overall treatment time to less than 7 weeks, that is 49 days or 50 days.
Okay, thank you so much, ma'am.
So how
Rashi,
you
ma'am?
interdigit your brachy, like you do it on Saturday, Fridays, or you complete 5 fractions a week, then do it on Saturday? How you do that?
When we are doing interdigitation?
Yeah, interdigitation.
Yes. So whenever you are doing brachytherapy, we do not give external beam radiation the day the patient is receiving the brachytherapy. It is essentially,
that is okay, yeah.
right.
You do it on Friday, but like 4 fraction external a week, then Friday brachy, or 5 fraction a week, then Saturday brachy. How you do it?
If you ask me in a center like ours, we only have 2 days. I only have a Tuesday and a Saturday. Okay. So as long as you are completing 5 fractions in a week, it doesn't matter. You can just work according to your logistics and give the brachytherapy either on a Saturday or a Friday or any weekday. And that day you omit the external radiation.
Okay, fine. So we can go ahead like doing 5 fraction external, then 6th brachy we can go ahead.
Yes, you can do it. So then you give a single application and a single fraction.
Yeah, single application, single fraction.
Yes, yes.
So thank you, Dr. Bhavna. I think we are done with the questions.
Yes, ma'am.
Excellent presentation.
Yeah, excellent presentation, Dr. Bhavna. And I think our students must pay attention that the whole treatment should be completed within 8 weeks.
Within 7 weeks.
Or 7. Dr. Bhavna, your comments on this last point.
On the last?
the total time period of the brachytherapy and external beam radiotherapy.
Definitely, like we said before also in the last class, respect the basic concepts and the principles of brachytherapy. Do a good clinical examination. Do your brachytherapy and application right. There is no, an alternative to a bad application. Get your basic concepts right. Keep your treatment within the stipulated overall treatment time of 7 weeks. So even if you're not being able to do